Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden, and today I am looking for your advice. I wanted to talk to you all about the plants I am considering adding to the shade garden, get your thoughts, and find out if there's any additional plants you think I should add. So I'm going to start with just a general recap of the shade garden. Originally, this is a space between my house and my neighbor's house. It doesn't grow grass very well. It's had some drainage issues in the past, and it's just a very underutilized space. So what I did is I decided to go ahead and turn that space into a shade garden. So far, we have laid down weed barrier. We have filled the space with lots of beautiful mulch and a really adorable paw print pathway. I've also built a Vigo garden and filled it with large scale logs and then topped it with compost and soil. In addition, I built a potting table out of an old workbench that I got for free and created an awning, and we've added that to the space. And then the last thing we did in the space was add drip lines to the entire space to allow access wherever I choose to run drip. And I have gone ahead and linked the videos to the shade garden below so you can get access and see everything that's involved, including the original inspiration. But now it's time to start talking about what plants I'm going to be incorporating. And a lot of these plants I am going to be planting this fall. Once the weather kind of breaks in my area, we are experiencing 40+ days of drought. And I think we actually, yesterday was our last triple digit day. It's like 30+ days of triple degree temperatures. It's been really rough, but it looks like we finally had a break, and then towards the mid to late September, it'll get much cooler around here, and I will be ready to plant. So I have some existing plants already. I have a hydrangea garden that I started 2 years ago on my back porch. That's all going to be shifted over into the shade garden. I also have some boxwood topiaries that I recently created, and some of those are going to be shifting over into that garden as well. But I do want to have some additional feature plants and then some not so prominent plants, but some interesting plants. So let's kind of talk through what I'm looking at. I'll show you guys some pictures, and I would love your thoughts and feedbacks regarding these. Now, I am looking at, in particular, gardencrossings.com to order a bunch of my shade plants for this year. Some of these plants are plants that I cannot find in my local nurseries, and then some of them are, but I want to guarantee that I have them. I don't want to have to search a million nurseries for them. I'm not going to order every single thing I'm listing. I don't think I am, but we shall see. So let's kind of chat through them. Okay, the first one is called Ajuga Black Scallop, and this is kind of a low growing ground cover. And I had thought about tucking this absolutely directly into the ground around some different areas and just allowed it to flow out and cover different areas. I'm not wanting to put this in any kind of particular container. I'm really kind of looking at it as a ground cover. It has beautiful dark supple leaves and then these beautiful purple blooms. And I've heard Ajuga is a very hardy plant and can deal with a lot of being beat up. And its moisture needs are pretty moderate to moist. It's considered an evergreen, which I think would be really nice in that back area. It says it can be utilized in containers as well, but I do plan on doing it as a ground cover. It says it can handle full sun, part sun, and then full shade, which is wonderful, and it's supposed to be really great for pollinators. Its height is only about 3 to 6 inches, and then its spread is about 8 to 10. And so this is definitely something I'm looking to put directly in the ground and tuck into different spots. I'm going to do a lot of container planting in the shade garden. I'm not going to be doing very much planting directly into the ground. But once I've got kind of those containers kind of spaced out and put in the places, I would love to tuck in some Ajuga at the base of the planters to kind of grow in around them. I think it could be a really cool look. Okay, so the next one I'm looking at doing is more of a feature plant. So it's kind of a little bit of a larger scale plant, and it is going to be in a container, and it is called Aurelia Sun King. And it is known as a golden Aurelia, so its foliage is more of a limey green color, which I think is beautiful. It says it's a chartreuse multi-petaled branch fan out, lending to an airy looking perennial. It produces white flowers in late summer, followed by purple berries in the fall and winter, which I would think would be absolutely beautiful. It's about 3 feet tall by 3 feet wide, and so I think in a container it could be really full and beautiful. I think it could also act as like a background plant, so basically a container that's put towards the back of the design, and then I could have smaller containers with more detailed flowers in front of it. It does part shade to full shade. It needs moisture, so I definitely will be having drip run to this particular container, and it says it does great in containers. It says water's edge, boggy, so it definitely likes a little bit of moisture. With that in mind, sometimes I lift up my containers to allow really great drainage underneath them. With this particular one, since it likes moist conditions and a little bit boggy, I will probably put the container directly on the ground so that it doesn't drain as well, and that kind of keeps that moisture that soil a little bit more moist. Okay, next thing I'm looking at is adding a series of hellebore into my shade garden. Now, I actually have hellebore in the front garden. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different specimens in the front garden. They've all done great. A couple of them were planted last fall as small perennials, so they didn't give me any blooms this year, but I do expect a lot of blooms next late winter, early spring. Now, for the ones that I'm looking at for the shade garden can be very dark, so I'm actually looking at some blooms that have some really great contrast or a unique and different color that I don't typically have in the rest of my area. So the first one I'm looking at is called Honeymoon Romantic Getaway Hellebore. And it has 3-inch white flowers that feature white petals with showy burgundy centers, so that really strong contrast of that white border with the burgundy center. It's about 18 to 24 inches tall by 24 inches wide. It's hardy in zones 4 to 9. It stays evergreen in the winter, which I think is wonderful because I don't want everything to just die back and be gone in that area. And it is supposed to be okay for containers. I'm going to be utilizing it in the really large Vigo container. I would like to have a couple of hellebore in those containers. And it is excellent as a cut flower, and it does fine with dry to moderate soil. So the soil does not have to be super moist. Okay, the next hellebore is probably my favorite one. It is called Honeymoon Sandy Shores. And it is an interesting single blooming one, and it has kind of a single large bloom that features pale yellow petals with a burgundy flare and a kiss of pink on the edge of the petals. Each bloom gets about 2.5 to 3 inches across, which I think sounds amazing, and it can bloom up to 6 weeks in length, which would be absolutely outstanding. It does do well with part shade, full shade. It is about 18 to 24 inches tall, about 18 to 24 inches wide. A wonderful cut flower. It also does great in containers. But once again, I was looking for that kind of unusual color, and I would love to see kind of that kind of yellow tangerine color within the shade garden for kind of just a brighter pop. Okay, the next hellebore I'm looking at is Honeymoon Tropical Sunset. And what I like about this particular one is it bridges the gap from the two other ones I just talked about, because it has yellow from the Sandy Shores and it has burgundy from the one I can't recall the name at this exact moment, but it kind of brings those two together in the same plant. And this one is described as deep evergreen foliage forms a mounding habit. Open creamy yellow flowers emerge with burgundy rose veining and a picoty edge. Large 3-inch flowers last 6 or more weeks. It is once again 18 to 24 inches high by 18 to 24 inches wide, part shade to full shade, cut flower, great in containers. Okay, so once again, I'm looking for unusual foliage, unusual colors and textures. I don't want everything to be the same color green. I really want to add some contrast, and I really want this space to feel unusual and unique, where I've handpicked each of the specimens that I brought into the garden. So the next one that I'm interested in is Fun and Games I Spy Hookerella. And I've never grown a Hookerella before. I've grown hookeras, but not a Hookerella. so that would be new to me. This stands only about 8 to 10 inches tall, and its spread is about 16 to 20 inches. It's excellent with heat and humidity tolerance, as well as being an excellent garden grower. It has deeper serrated leaves with a yellow amber color in the spring with deep burgundy rose veins, which I think would be amazing. As the spring progresses to summer, the foliage turns a bright chartreuse green with a silvery overlay. The blooms are bright, beautiful pink bottle brush flowers that bloom in the late spring and last for many weeks. And I'm thinking about tucking this particularly into a container. I think would be nice. It's only about 9 to 16 inches tall, 20-inch spread. It can take full sun, part shade, or full shade. And it's excellent as a cut flower, and once again, really great in a container. Okay, so I am not a big fan of hostas. It's just not something I've really enjoyed over the years. However, I was drawn to one in particular on here, and it is a Shadowland wee hosta. And the leaves look like they curl. It looks so fun. It's wee, it's awesome. And so I am considering that one as well. It has cream-colored margins that extend from the tip of the leaf to the base of the plant. The intense ruffled edges are prominent even in the young stages of this plant, and the leaves are medium sized and have good substance, making them more slug resistant, which I think is going to be important. It sends up lavender flowers. It is hardy in zones 3 to 9. It is about 1 to 2 feet tall and about 3 feet wide, part shade to full shade. My son just stepped on a toy. It does really well in clay soil, which is, I have a ton of that, but I am going to be planting this in a container, and the flowers do great as cut flowers, and it does do well as a container flower. So y'all let me know if you've planted your hostas in containers. Some of you guys had suggested that I do that, and so I am going to give that a try. That's the only hosta I'm considering trying, but maybe I'll fall in love. We'll see. Okay, the next one I'm looking at ordering is called Pulmonaria Raspberry Splash. And it is kind of a shrub, but it also has flowers. It dazzles with raspberry pink flower clusters that make a stark contrast to the silvery spotted foliage. The unique foliage provides all-season interest and combines wonderfully with the other shade-loving plants. It's resistant to deer and rabbits. That's not really my issue. It has more of an upright growth habit and is loaded with blooms in the late spring. Removing the spent blooms will promote new flower growth. The mature plant is about 1 to 2 feet tall, max spread about 3 feet. It can take full sun, part shade, or full shade. And it likes moderate to moist soil moisture, so that's good to know. It is an evergreen, and it does well as a combination container or a container on its own. I really like the color, and then of course the very cool foliage that's left behind after the blooms are gone. Okay, the next one I'm looking at is a compact shrub called Little Henry Itea. Hopefully Itea or Itea. I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And it is a small shrub, only about 1 to 3 feet tall by 3 feet wide. It's hardy in zones 5 through 9, handles full sun, part shade, full shade, is loved by butterflies, definitely prefers more of a moist, wet soil. So once again, that would be a container that I would sit directly on the ground so it didn't drain as well. And it's supposed to do really great in containers. And it is known for sweetly scented white flowers that erupt over the mounding foliage. As the temperature cools in early fall, the foliage turns reddish orange and eventually changes to a brilliant blood red that is even more intense than a burning bush. So I'm pretty obsessed with that. I think it'll be absolutely gorgeous. Now, I also would like to look at adding some type of viburnum into the shade garden. I didn't find one that I particularly liked on Garden Crossings, but that is something I'm looking out for. I don't want it to be too massive. Maybe topping out like at 3 to 4 feet would be really nice, but I would love your suggestions if you have one for a viburnum. Something that changes into berries in the fall and winter would be lovely. Okay, another one that I selected and I'm interested in for the color is called Virginia Miss Piggy. And it is kind of smaller. It's only about 16 to 18 inches in height, about 28 to 32 inches wide. It can handle full sun, part shade, full shade. It's hardy in zones 4 to 9. It is great as a cut flower, and it does well in a container as well. And it is this full sun to full shade, which is amazing. Loving Pig Squeak features extra large, thick, dark green foliage that is evergreen year round, which is lovely. It makes a great ground cover as well. In late spring, large clusters of bright pink blossoms emerge nestled just among the above the foliage. And so I think that sounds really beautiful. It's supposed to be really great as a pollinator as well. But one of the features I love is the bright, beautiful flowers and the fact that it's evergreen. But who knows, I could start this one in a container, and since it does great as a ground cover, I could experiment with putting it into the ground at a later point in time. Okay, the next one that I'm interested in has some very interesting colored foliage, and it's called Pulmonium golden feathers, and it's a bicolor foliage, so it really has like bright yellow leaves with olive green centers. Now this is more of a compact mounding perennial, so it stands only about 10 to 13 inches tall, spreads to about 14 inches wide. It has light purple blooms appear just above the foliage in early summer. It is hardy in zones 5 through 9, part shade to full shade, moderate moisture, and it is supposed to do well in a container, but I really like that contrast of that really bright yellow in a shaded area. Okay, so those are the plants that I'm looking at garden crossings. Now, I've experimented in a lot of other places, but several of y'all have told me I need to purchase from garden crossings. I've never done so, but I've heard their plants are amazing from several of you all. So I'm going to go ahead and take that leap for the shade garden this year and get that tried out. Now, I want to talk about some other things I'm wanting to do and plant in the shade garden. One of the big features I would love to have is a variety of Japanese maples. I am obsessed with Japanese maples. I've never had a place to really plant them. And so I'm really looking at utilizing them to create some really interesting architecture throughout the space. I want them to be a little taller, or perhaps in a container that's lifted up, so that they can kind of create a canopy throughout the space. I think it would be beautiful. I would love to walk in and have to go under some of the branches of the Japanese maple when I'm in there. And so I don't have a particular variety of Japanese maple I'm looking at this time. They're obviously all pretty slow growing, which is perfect for my conditions. I would love it if they were slow growing. I've seen some really great deals at Green Acres over in Irving, that kind of newer nursery that I did a tour on early spring, and they had some astounding prices for the Japanese maples, like huge, massive ones for only $400, which $400 sounds like a fortune, but not for that size Japanese maple. That's amazing. So I might go look there for some Japanese maples, but I did want to put up some inspiration photos for you guys to kind of take a look at so you can see where I'm going with them. I definitely want them to be in containers, and I want a lot of my containers to be stair-step, taller ones, medium ones, low ones, different sizes. They're probably going to be a variety of different types of containers, whether terracotta, ceramic. I'm sure there will be some that are going to be like plastic, but they look like stone. Some options like that. And then I would love to be able to tuck in like little sculptures and things like that, just to kind of give it a beautiful feel. I'm also really obsessed with the idea of having this beautiful Japanese maple in a pot, but then the bottom of the pot being covered with some kind of mossy substance. I'm not sure what that mossy substance would be. Obviously something that enjoys full shade, but I'll put up some pictures so you can see what my vision is with that as well. Okay, so that's my vision for plants. I'm sure there's plants that I'm missing that you all feel like I really need. So I would really love to hear from you, especially if you're in a Zone 8A area, or if you're in the North Texas area. I would love to hear what shade plants do well for you in our ridiculous heat, in our clay soil, in our drought laden area. I would really love to hear what has worked for you in your shade garden. So be sure to drop those suggestions below. I also wanted to just show you all a little bit of the vision that I'm currently swinging towards for the entrance to the shade garden. If you recall, I'm going to be creating some kind of arch situation going in there, but I do want to create some kind of like wall structure that's going to cast more shade into that particular particular area as the day goes on. Right now, I'm really focused on potentially some type of screen door opening, where an actual door that would open to go through into the garden. I think that that would be really whimsical and fun. I could hang a a fun wreath on there for the different seasons. And I like that idea that it's kind of closed off so my dogs can't get in there, because right now it's all open and they think that the mulch is a perfect place to do their business in, which is unfortunate since the mulch and their business is the same color. So I would love to keep them out of there if at all possible. On the sides of the door, I would like to create some kind of trellis effect. I think would be really fabulous. I don't know if I'm going to create that trellis effect through an actual fence, if I want lattice, if I want to hand make something. I'm not really sure on that direction. Right now, I'm working out a lot of logistics on how to secure this to the ground without having wood touching the ground at all the time where it would rot and have some issues. I prefer not to utilize treated lumber if I can get away with it, but I might not be able to get away with it in this particular area, especially the pieces that touch the actual ground. Now, my husband and I were driving around and we dug through somebody's trash recently and found these awesome 6-inch by 6-inch solid wood posts with these beautiful finials on the top. It was obviously an opening to a gate. So we did snag those up and I've got those laying out in the garden. So I'm going to kind of work that in there as well. But y'all know how I am. I'm not wanting to utilize a lot of fresh lumber, but we'll kind of see. We are getting to the point where I would like to accomplish this project in the next probably 2 to 4 weeks. And so if I'm not able to salvage the materials I need, I will have to buy some of them, but I'm going to try to salvage as much as possible. But I really like this idea of a grand entrance, and maybe not grand's not the right word, secret garden entrance. That's probably more the word. And I kind of like the idea that this is just a special space for myself. I think it'll be spectacular. All right, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. It was really fun kind of going through this with y'all, trying to give you my vision for it. I'm also nervous about going to buy all the plants for this because shade gardening is way out of my realm. This will be my first time doing shade gardening. That's why I really wanted to throw up some of the things I was thinking about and get y'all's thoughts and feedback. So don't be hesitant to let me know things you love, things you don't love, things you've had success with, or things you think that I missed and should be adding to the garden. All right, you all, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know my latest videos are up. And make sure you drop me a comment below letting me know your thoughts on shade garden plants. Also, check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.